What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Same Philly Sports History for March 29th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Happy opening day. It's finally here, albeit a day late. It looks like it's going to be sunny. It's going to be windy, and the wind is blowing in. But it does appear they could have gotten the game in yesterday. But more on that in a minute. But as always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, who do you think this year's Phillies MVP will be? And really, no surprise, 78% of you said it was Bryce. And I think that's the obvious answer. And we've seen since he's been here, he's sort of been the catalyst for everything. Wheeler got a vote. Trey Turner got some votes. But really, I think this team, if Bryce comes back and has an MVP-like year, he makes everyone around him better. And that is really what you want. Like, he is your superstar. He is the guy that, to borrow Reggie Jackson's line, he's the straw that stirs the drink. So I don't think you can go wrong. However, I don't know. I think you're going to find out. Harper's going to do what he does. Wheeler, Nola, Turner's going to bounce back. Those guys are going to do it. I think the MVP of this team is going to be somebody you're not expecting. I had some votes for yesterday for Alvarado. Personally, I think Ranger is going to be the unsung hero of this pitching staff. I've said it for the past 2 years. They always needed to win the Ranger-Suarez game in the playoffs, and I think having him healthy, knowing his role in the rotation going into the season, I think is going to play a big part in just him having a breakout year. But as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531 get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. I did get a lot of feedback, too, about Duke and the fact that I called that game against Kentucky one of, if not the greatest NCAA tournament games of all time. I had a lot of, and I'm assuming Duke fans come at me, or not really come at me, but say that the year before actually was the better game, the championship game against UNLV when Duke won their first national championship. And listen, I'm not a Duke guy. I'm not going to argue that. Both of those games were great. Don't get me wrong. But that's the type of feedback I want. Let me have it. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Be sure to check out my social media. Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. At Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Check me out on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's where you get all the content. Everything gets uploaded there. You also get access to the archives of the other podcasts I did, Back to the Future. I still left those things up there, so be sure to check it out. Tell your friends. Let's expand this thing. I saw there's a lot of people upset with the predictability, I guess you could call it, of the sports talk radio station. Tell your friends. You're going to get all the same stuff here. You just don't have the same annoying callers every day. And you're going to have some fun and learn something about Philly sports history along the way. So be sure to tell your friends, like and subscribe, all that other good stuff. All right, it is opening day. And to me, it's one of the best days of the year. I've mentioned it at the beginning of the tournament that this time of the year, but opening day, there's just something that's different. And I feel like Eagles season opener, Phillies, or the Sixers, Flyers, all of that pales in comparison to baseball opening day. And I don't know whether it's the spring or what, but we had this conversation yesterday about, are people making it? And it's like, no, there's always this big deal about opening day because it's like everybody, especially for baseball, it's like everybody has that hope. And then you have teams like the Rockies who yesterday quickly realized who they were. But that opening day, just the anticipation and the excitement, spring is coming. So for my money, it's the best season or start to a season of all of the sports, any of the sports actually. But Randy Wolf is throwing out the first pitch, much like he did 20 years ago, to open Citizens Bank Park. I mentioned this yesterday, but starting April 3rd, running through April 22nd, going to be going through my best Citizens Bank Park moments. Some of them I've been there for, some of them I watch. But these are my top 20 moments, no particular order for the history of Citizens Bank Park. I was waiting till opening day, but I did notice that WIP is running something similar. Probably not going to be the same as what I'm doing, but April 3rd through April 22nd, I will be doing the 20 best moments at Citizens Bank Park. Starting Monday then as well. The theme for April is we're going to look at unfinished business and teams that have left a little bit of meat on the bone at their end of their season. And currently this team, this Phillies core group from 22, 23, and into this year fits that category. There's definitely some unfinished business there. So those are the types of things we're going to talk about, and whether or not those teams actually had a legitimate shot or it was just they were overachievers. So stay tuned for that. Also, check out the Phillies preview before the season starts. You get my 3 bold predictions. I'll give you a hint. Bryce and Ranger are included on that, but that's available. Go back through the archives. I did it last week. I think it was the 21st or 22nd I did that. So check out the Phillies preview. Along with the bold predictions, I give my outlook for the season and where I see this team going. But back to opening day. Just some fun facts about opening day. This is the Phillies' 142nd season, which is kind of crazy. All time, they're 63, 76, and 2. Yes, there are 2 ties on opening day, and that was in 1923 and 1924, so they tied back-to-back seasons. The opening day winning percentage is slightly under what their all-time winning percentage is, so typically about 45% of the time the Phils win on opening day. This is the 32nd time that they've opened up against the Braves franchise, whether it's the Boston Braves, Milwaukee Braves, Atlanta Braves, the different names and iterations of that. But this is the 32nd time they opened up against the Braves. The 12th time they've opened their season at Citizens Bank Park. They are 5-6. Let's hope today makes that 6-6. 12 times in 20 years they've opened up at home. So that's a pretty legitimate stat there. The first time since 2017 that Aaron Nola is not going to be the opening day starter. He is number 3 all time on opening day starts. Steve Carlton has 14, Robin Roberts has 12, and I believe Nola has 6. So first time since 2017. But today it's Zach Wheeler versus Spencer Strider. There is not anyone on the Braves team that I despise more than Spencer Strider. He's the guy, if you remember, that said, "Oh, the fans, I wish they would play without fans." He probably said it tongue-in-cheek, but hopefully if you're going down to the game, let him have it today. And we talk about this a lot, but and this is not the official question of the day, but is there a person with a more punchable face than Spencer Strider? And if you're a new listener, a punchable face means just that. You just look at him and you want to punch him. I don't think there's anybody really that has one more than Spencer Strider with that stupid mustache and his stupid comments. But man, he's good, but he's not good at Citizens Bank Park against the Phils. So let's get at him today. If you're going down, let's get him rattled, get him out by the 4th inning, and let's just explode. I did mention that could have played yesterday. There seemed to be no rain. There seemed to be a lot of people going back and forth. Like the weather, it's funny. Just like when a lot of the stuff happened with A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia sports media sort of stuck together, the weather and news community really stuck together behind the meteorologists who were calling for all this rain and stuff yesterday. It was just funny to see. I think they called the game too soon. They should have waited. But it's going to be a sunny day, and who doesn't like opening day on a Friday anyway? The wind's going to be blowing in, though, 15 to 20 miles, up to 30 miles per hour gusts. But let's do it. This is, hands down, my favorite time of the year. And honestly, that does lead us to today's question of the day. To me, Citizens Bank Park, of all of our 4 major teams, Citizens Bank Park is by far the best game day atmosphere. And I have Eagle season tickets, and I'm much like, I go for the entire the experience, the tailgate, this, that, and the other. But watching a game at the Link, isn't nearly as good as watching it on TV. Baseball, though, there's just something that in Citizens Bank Park, when it's rocking, like there was a point in time before kids that we were bored on a Tuesday night. That's what we would do. So that's the question of the day. Which of our 4 teams have the best game day atmosphere? Is it the Phillies? Is it the Eagles, the Sixers, or the Flyers? If you want to throw the Union in there, you can, but I tried to stick to the 4 major sports and the South Philly experience. But like I said, nothing beats Citizens Bank Park. But which is the best game day experience, best game day atmosphere? Is it the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, or Flyers? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know, too, like I said, the bonus, who has a more punchable face than Spencer Strider? You're going to be hard-pressed to find one. You know who doesn't have a punchable face? And that is PhillyGoat.com. Go check them out. They have the Whiz Wit shirt. They have the shoes that hopefully mine are coming today. I would love, and I'm going out to a birthday party, a 40th birthday party tonight. If those things come, I'm wearing them out to the bar. Cannot wait for them to come. Today should be the day. I will show you tomorrow. I cannot wait. I got the fans, the Schmitties, and the Cape Mays. But go check out the canvas leather loafers they have, the Whiz Wit shirt for Whit Merrifield. Anything else they have, it is the holy season for Christians. They have our Lord and Savior, Jesus Bryce. That's a great shirt. Just go check it out. They have a ton of Philly stuff. Get ready for the season because it's going to be a fun one. While you're there, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. And will we be seeing a Go-Go Ranger Suarez shirt? I'm telling you, he's going to be the unsung hero of this team this year. All right. Switching gears somewhat, the Flyers with a horrible loss last night to the Montreal Canadiens, a team that is in the bottom half of the standings. And the Flyers really, after playing so hard against the Rangers, Maple Leafs, and Bruins, had no business losing this game, but luckily the Capitals as well as the Red Wings both lost as well, so they did not lose any ground in the standings. They're still a point up on Washington, 3 points up on the Red Wings, and they're back at it. Another quote-unquote cupcake. They're playing the Blackhawks tomorrow, which are one of the worst teams in the league. So hopefully they can get back on track and win. But I guess as bad of a loss as it was, it's a no harm, no foul because Washington and Detroit both lost. You're not going to get that lucky, though, moving forward. Sixers in action tonight in Cleveland. Joe practiced, and there was footage of him practicing against players. There is still no timeline for his return. However, this is purely speculation on my part, but let's connect some of these dots here. It's only a 2-game road trip. They're going to Cleveland, then Toronto. 2 easier games. The team's going to be practicing. Joe's starting to ramp it up. April 2nd, I believe, would be the 8-week anniversary of his surgery. It's a 6 to 8 week recovery process. They have a game at home on April 2nd. They need to make sure he's in game shape. He's traveling with the team. And again, I'm just putting it out there. Sometime next week, are we going to see the return of Joe? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a big deal. Obviously it's a big deal he's practicing, but I think it's a big deal that he's traveling with the team. So, again, purely speculation, but if we start connecting some of these dots in the timeline, there's no reason to believe that the Sixers don't have a timeline for his return. That's ridiculous. But, of course, they're not going to tell us that. But all games matter at this point, so maybe having Joe practice with the team also will help them against a team like Cleveland, who is above the Sixers in the standings, and then Toronto's not so good, which is good, but I don't know. Like I said, it's purely speculation, but I think we're close to seeing Joe return, and I by this time next week, I think we're going to have a Joel Embiid sighting in a game, and likely it's going to be huge. The other big thing that came out yesterday was, and I saw this and I couldn't understand it, until I saw the replay and they slowed it down. But Kelly Oubre went off on the reps. All three of them, he said, "You're a bitch, you're a bitch, you're a bitch. Your mom's a bitch, your dad's a bitch, your grandmom's a bitch." And really, between, like, everybody saw Nick Nurse going after the refs, but Oubre really went after. They came out and said that they missed the call, which is absolutely ridiculous too. Like, how are you able to do that? Like, yeah, I literally messed up at my job and cost the team a game, but oh well, let's go out to eat. It's ridiculous, but maybe, just maybe, and if you see sort of connect more of these dots, maybe something like that is going to be what rallies this team. They're leaving home. They're going on the road. Joe's traveling with them. I don't know. And again, I tell you all the time, the Sixers are like my ex-girlfriend who I always go back to knowing how it's going to turn out. And yet here I am getting all hyped up about Joe's return and Kelly Oubre galvanizing the team and whatever. Every time they suck me in. Some quick Eagles news. They're still deciding on what to do with Hassan Reddick. According to Derek Gunn, he wants more money than what the Eagles are willing to pay him, and they're willing to just let him kind of ride it out with what he has. So whether or not he gets traded, I feel like they're probably in no rush to do it. The deal's got to be right, but it'll probably be something if they're going to trade him. This is when Howie does stuff like around the time of the draft. So more on that as it comes. But when Derek Gunn reports something like that, I feel it was worth speaking of. All right, today we are going to go back to 2014, and on this day in 2014, the Sixers, who were en route to a 19-63 season that would net them the third pick in the draft, which led to them drafting Joel Embiid. But on this day, they beat the Pistons 123-98 at the Wells Fargo Center. Thaddeus Young had 21 points and 6 rebounds. Michael Carter-Williams had 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. And why am I telling you about this? Because it was a big win for them. It snapped a 26-game losing streak that would have given the Sixers sole possession of the longest in-season losing streak in NBA history. Instead, they remained tied with the 2010-2011 Cleveland Cavaliers. This was the early days of the process. If you remember Michael Carter-Williams, Nerlens Noel, all those guys. But this year in particular, this was supposed to be the win list for Wiggins. Everybody wanted Andrew Wiggins. Jabari Parker was in that draft. Joe was in that draft. And Cleveland, who I forget the guy's name now that they drafted the year before when they had the number 1 pick, completely missed on it. I really wish I remember his name. I can picture his face. I just know he didn't pan out well. Somehow Cleveland got the first pick again. They had a 1.7% chance of winning the lottery, and they won it, which pushed the Sixers down to third, which the way the draft fell, went Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, and Joel Embiid fell right down to the Sixers. And remember, there was questions about his injuries, and everybody wanted Dante Exum, the point guard. But I think overall, the Sixers won this draft because of how well Joel played. And as always, you know how I like to do these things. If you're keeping score at home, the current longest in-season winning streak in NBA history is 28 games, set by this year's Detroit Pistons. So the Sixers and Cavs are off the hook. Technically speaking, though, the Sixers are still tied for the longest losing streak in NBA history with the Pistons. The 2014-15 team lost their last 10 games, and then the 2015-2016 team lost its first 18 of the next season. That 18-game losing streak, and this is just how bad the process was, that 18-game losing streak is tied with the 2009-2000 Nets for the longest to open a season. So just a bad time for the process in Philly. But on this day, back in 2014, the Sixers snapped their 26-game losing streak, beating the Pistons 123-98 at the Wells Fargo Center, temporarily tying history until the Detroit Pistons beat that record this year. So thank you, Detroit, for that. Be sure to also check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. They have an NBA version. If you enjoy the NFL and want to get some NBA fix as we're heading into the playoffs, go check them out. The Clashing Conferences podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. All right, and finally today, this day in Philly sports history, Women's History Month spotlight is Charlene Morett. Char was a field hockey legend from Darby. She went to Lansdowne Alden High School, where she graduated, and then went to Penn State. When she graduated from Penn State, she was the all-time leading scorer with 50 goals, a record that would last 21 years. She was a 3-time first-team All-American, still to this day the only one at Penn State to be a 3-time All-American for field hockey. She was a member of the 1980 and 1984 Olympic teams. The 84 team won the bronze medal. She did get the Congressional Medal of Honor for the 1980 team. If you remember, that is when the United States boycotted because it was in Moscow. After graduation, though, she got into coaching. She was an assistant under Beth Anders, who we talked about earlier this month at Old Dominion. From there, she went to be the head coach at Boston College before taking over at her alma mater, Penn State. And all she did at Penn State was basically just dominate basically everything but win a championship. She won 9 conference titles, 2 A-10, and 7 Big Tens. Took that team to 6 Final Fours, 2 championship games, 575 wins, which is top 5 all-time, 30 NCAA tournament appearances. She's in the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. She's a 2-time USA Field Hockey Hall of Famer, 1 as an individual and 1 for the 1984 Olympic team. She's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame and just an absolute coaching legend. Char Morett is this day in Philly sports history, Women's History Month spotlight from Darby, PA, and just dominated, one of the greatest players and coaches ever at Penn State for any sport, for that matter. But Char Morett is today's Women's History Month spotlight. Just an absolute. She's a and again, if you're a wrestling fan, you know this. But Booker T is a 2-time Hall of Famer. And he's always like 2 times, but she's a 2-time USA Field Hockey Hall of Famer. If you're a wrestling fan, you get that. But on this day in 2014, the Sixers beat the Pistons 123-98, snapping their 26-game losing streak and tying with the 2010-11 Cavaliers, who ultimately, both teams are off the hook now because this year's Pistons have the record for longest in-season losing streak. Let me know what you think. Am I connecting the right dots here for the Sixers? Are we going to see Joe sooner rather than later? Let me know. They're in Cleveland tonight. Huge game for the Sixers tonight. Excuse me. Let me know which sport has the best game day atmosphere in Philly. Is it the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, or Flyers? For my money, it's 100% the Phillies. Nothing beats Citizens Bank Park when that place is rocking, and it's going to be rocking today. So if you're going down there, let Spencer Strider have it, and be sure to let me know who has a more punchable face than Spencer Strider. I don't think you're going to – it's impossible to find one. But enjoy the game today. Stay warm. It's Friday. It's a feel-good Friday. It's a holiday weekend. Be safe out there. But let's go Phils. Let's go Sixers. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.